Hello and welcome to my channel. With me today I have this interesting video that I want to share with you guys. Now I think we've all been hearing rumors about Chinese or Asian people having black ancestry. Now, this is more like a fact, and in this video this Asian man just points that out, and according to him he explains all this by using a research by Professor Jin Lee, who talked about ancient migration patterns between Africa and Asia some 60,000 years ago. Let's check out his video and hear what he says.
For you to say the first Chinese may have been black, you just erased your own people and history and gave the Wabos the history. You have no honor. So first of all, I just had to Google Wabo, and it means wannabe aboriginals. Make of that what you will. So this guy's upset because I talked about the research findings of Professor Jin Lee of Shanghai's Fudan University, indicating that there is ancient black ancestry among the Chinese people. This professor talks about ancient migration patterns between Africa and Asia dating back some 60,000 years. And you can even see the likeness today when you compare the features of Chinese people and the Khoisan people of South Africa. I think it's sad that you feel I have no honor and that I've erased the history of my people in talking about this. The way I see it, we're mostly all taught one version of history, but that learning should never stop, and we should always be open to new information. And when we explore new information, I don't think it erases anything, it just adds to the richness of our history. And surely, if we learn that we might be more closely connected than we realized, that must be a good thing, not a bad thing, right?
Now, if you carry out a research on the Khoisan people of South Africa, indeed you're going to see these features and the likeness of the Chinese and the Khoisan people of South Africa. So if you want to hear or learn more about this, then make sure to watch this video to the end. For now, let's watch the research videos and what people had to say. And when I come back, we go deep into talking about this. Now, here are the teachers.
First Chinese may have been black. You just erased your own people and history.
So like and subscribe to this creator and watch the previous video where he speaks on Chinese potentially descending from Negroid or African descended people, right? And I find it interesting, and I'm glad that he responded to the comment that he was responding to, right? Because that particular creator is speaking on the exclusivity of Mongoloid featured natives or aboriginals to the United States and its vastness of land, when science has proved awkwardly different, that there were many different types of humanoids that were aboriginal to the vastness of this land. And the argument that has now happened based upon European hegemonic white supremacist repurposed bought history. All right, check it out.
In black. You just erased your own.
Wait a minute. Is this a native getting angry at an Asian guy for telling the truth? Oh my. It is the validation for me. Man, and you got the nerve to tell this man, oh, you're erasing your own people by acknowledging the Wabos. Nah, he's not acknowledging the Wabos. He's an honest person. Something you don't know nothing about. See, corny people, they don't know what it means to be real. Being real means you tell the truth even when it don't benefit you. Because that's what that means. But when you corny, you make up lies, right? You try to hide from the truth.
These people may have been black.
And you know what? That actually makes sense to me. One day I was sitting up high as hell thinking, who was the first person to smoke marijuana? So I went on my little searchy search and found that it was a mythological emperor by the name of Shennong. He's known as the father of medicine. In Chinese, cannabis is called ma. And ma was used in ancient times to balance the yin and the yang. The yin dealing with the female aspects and the yang dealing with the male. But then good old Emperor Shennong realized that the female plant was more potent than the male plant, so he only started growing the female plant and began using Ma to treat the yin. Then the emperor messed around and burnt the plant and liked the smell. Then started seeing stuff and realized that it had psychoactive properties. And much like our ancestors, I have a respect for this emperor because he was experimenting on himself to find out the medicinal properties of these herbs and tinctures and things, which is ultimately how he ended up passing away. He swallowed something poisonous and did not live long enough to ingest the antidote, therefore sacrificing his life for his people. So not only does Emperor Shennong make me think that the first Chinese were black, but the fact that our black ancestors accept ancestor money with Chinese emperors' faces on it also says a lot.
As representative of the entire race.
You guys are going to think I'm crazy, but in my opinion, we're all human beings who grew up from the earth. So like there's a part of me that feels like there's a whole part of the world that grew up completely white, and there's a whole part of the world that grew up completely black. And as the years went on and as we evolved as human beings, you know, this is the reason why the pigment of our, you know, this is why my skin tone is brown or light brown, you know, because of different generations and just as the world is changing. But I don't believe that we all came from Africa. I just feel like there are certain parts where it was hot. That's where most of us grew up from out of this earth, dark or black. And the other part of the world that was cold grew up with white skin. So do with that information what you will. But yeah, that's just my opinion.
Afternoon, good evening to you. I think you're like 14 hours ahead, 16 hours. So good evening, good night for, you know, however long and however far ahead in the future you are. Also, black archaeologist here. And you are correct. In my senior year of biological anthropology course, we talked about the Great Migration. And let me pull that up actually for my computer. In my course, this is actually the map that we used. This is a map of the actual Great Migration. And right here, the heart of Africa. That's where we all come from. Not just the Sudan desert, but right here, which is about Ethiopia, maybe. It's been a while since I've, you know, drawn a map of Africa for a class that I passed, by the way. Anyway, this is the map of the migration. So it shows how when the entire continents were together, you know, Pangea, this is what happened after the last ice age, when all the shit was melted and the land bridges were still exist before ocean levels rose. This is where we went. You see, you have to that area, and you have to that area, and then you have it all to that area. And then you have the Bering Bridge, which is now the Bering Strait, and then that area and there. And then, of course, you have it up there as well. And the recent study that you're talking about is a study that we learned about during the 101 course, which I got this map from, as well as the biological anthropology course. And basically, because a lot of nationalism that they have in China and a lot of other Asian countries like Japan and Thailand, they don't even allow, like, you know, outside archaeologists and anthropologists to dig up the land because they so want a narrative, which is very much steeped in racism, by the way. They were told throughout their entire, you know, centuries and centuries and decades and millennia of history that they happened to evolve separately from the Negroid, from Africa, and they did not. And the recent study that you mentioned was that they wanted to look to the DNA markers, the mitochondrial DNA, to determine where the split happened and where, you know, the people who are of Asian and Oceania descent evolved differently and separately from Africa. And actually that study proved that they had black African traces and DNA within their chronological history. And it blew all of their minds. But
welcome back from the land of stitches, guys. They're just parts that I never want you to miss, like the stitches part and the part we read the comments. You know that these parts are always fire. We have seen the stitch videos, and now I would like to share a few comments from the comment section, then afterwards get to share my own thoughts about this video. Let's check them out together. Now the first comment says, "Thank you, I'm Koi from Cape Town, and all our babies have the features you speak of, and we love it, so thank you. They were not grouped but willingly coexisted with Bantu way before the colonizers." This one says, "I googled the Khoisan people and understand what you mean by resemblance or likeness. That doesn't erase it. It enhances. It gives the people a longer, more inclusive history. Be proud." What if I told you humans almost went extinct a couple of times and we all came from the last group? Black Africans were everywhere, first in the USA, Mexico, Egypt, South America, North America, but many don't want to talk about colonization. Now these are some of the comments from people, and we can see a lot of people agreeing to what he said. The Khoisan were the first people in Southern Africa, and their history is both fascinating and a somber reminder on how our direct and indirect actions can bring about the decline of an entire people. Now, long before the first settlers arrived in South African on the South African shores, there were various groups of people that spread out sparsely across the land. Now, these people today called the Khoisan were skilled hunter-gatherers and nomadic farmers who lived off the land, and yet, in spite of their earliest presence on the land, they are among the country's most persecuted people. And even after the fall of apartheid in South Africa, they are among the most forgotten as well. Now, populations from East Asia always derived from a single lineage, indicating the single origins of those populations. Now, the researchers said it is now probably safe to conclude that modern humans originating in Africa constitute the majority of the current gene pool in East Asia. Now, although a few scholars today dispute the idea that the earliest ancestors of human species evolved in Africa, there is still a considerable debate over how modern humanity evolved from its more primitive ancestors. Now, many anthropologists believe that humans may have migrated out of Africa in waves more than 1 million years ago. Humanity's primitive ancestors, known as Homo erectus, walked out of Africa to colonize Europe, the Middle East, and Asia. Most of the modern population of China has its genetic origins in Africa. Scientists say prehistoric humans may have migrated east across Southeast Asia and then turned north to settle China. Now, for those that would want to appreciate or read more on this, then I would advise you check out the history of the Chinese in South Africa. They look sub-Saharan African, but they have the epicanthic forward, more Southeast Asian, and it could be that Asians acquired these folds from Khoisan people in regards to the out of Africa theory. They may not possess the same strands of hair yet their facial features are remarkably similar in almost everywhere. Now, after these findings, there is a possibility of black ancestry among the Chinese. Like, I don't know what you think, guys, but feel free to drop your comments. Thank you for watching, and see you in my next video.